A couple weeks late, but still important, especially since I've never heard anyone else have this take. In Matthew chapter 14, John the Baptist is killed. We're all familiar with the story. The nameless, but nonetheless apparently very sexy daughter of Herodias put on an alluring enough dance that Herod declared he'd give her whatever she asked. She asked for the head of John the Baptist, as a young girl might. He obliges, and that's the end of John. There are a few incredibly striking things about this tale that people don't seem to point out, so I will, since it's extremely important and relevant to us all. One might note just how simply this line in the gospel is. He had John beheaded in the prison. His head was brought in on a platter and given to the girl. That's it, guys. Which might not strike one as odd, seeing that you're likely very familiar with the story, but stop, and for the first time, let this sink in. We are all, whether we consciously realize it or not, preoccupied with our own deaths. We all wish our deaths to be some great poetic death, where we leave behind so many who love us, and this great legacy to be remembered by. It's difficult for any of us to imagine just simply walking outside and getting hit by a bus and boom, that's the end of our lives, although that's happened to plenty of people. It's difficult for us to think about how unpoetic our deaths could possibly be, even though most other deaths we know of have been fairly unpoetic. Sudden heart attacks, aneurysms, hit by a bus. But no, our own lives couldn't possibly end so suddenly. No, ours will be in bed, surrounded by our loved ones in our ripe old age, after we've written out exactly all of our last wishes and our memoirs. But why? Why do we think this way? Well, quite frankly, because we are the most important person to ourselves. As much as people might disagree, we cannot live without ourselves. It is not to say that we love ourselves the best, necessarily, but that we simply think more about ourselves than anyone else, which is absolutely normal. It would be rather creepy to be as preoccupied with someone else's thoughts as we are our own. It's because of all this, and our awareness of our plans and desire to wrap up our lives in these pretty little bows, that we cannot truly fathom our lives coming to a sudden end, and surely not in near as a horrific way as John the Baptist. Think about it. He wasn't given an execution date. He likely only had a moment's notice of his own death right before it happened. But why is this fact in and of itself so remarkable? John the Baptist's absolutely unremarkable death is so damn remarkable because of who he was and exactly how plainly he died. He died without pomp. His death was but one single flippant line. And then what happens? His body was immediately desecrated. His head was paraded about to show off just how unmighty he was compared to the whims of a king such as Herod. And yet, what did the King of the universe have to say about such a man? Truly, I tell you, among those born of women, no one has arisen greater than John the Baptist. So this man, who Jesus Christ himself spoke so grandly, had but one line in the gospel about his untimely and violent death and desecration. This man, who gave his entire life to preaching repentance and preparing the way for God himself, spending time in prison for speaking the truth and offending those in power, he was not granted a grand momentous death for speaking a slight against another, a crime far less than what any of us might do against someone else on any given day. He got but a moment's notice to prepare, and a single line. A quick criminal's death, without the consolation of any loved ones nearby, likely believing he'll simply be forgotten. So then I ask you, what better a death could any of us, so far below John, possibly deserve?